Hello students, we will be now doing the second part of the same chapter, Green and Nanochemistry. This unit deals with nanochemistry. All of you are aware about the term nano. Nano indicates in Greek numbers 10 raised to minus 9. This is one of the prefixes used in SI units. Basically, nanoscience indicates the study of phenomenon and manipulation of materials at atomic, molecular, and macromolecular scales, where properties will differ significantly from that at the large scale. This is a definition of nanoscience. The meaning is quite simple that when a material is in bulk, its properties are different. When it is at atomic level, the properties are different, and when it is at nano level, properties are different. The same properties starting from color of a substance to its electrical conductivity. Everything differs when it comes to the nanoscale. Nanoscience studies the phenomena, properties, and such things at that level. Using nanoscience, now we have what is known as nanotechnology. In nanotechnology, we are going to go for design, characterization, production, and applications of structures which are maintained at nanometer scale. By nanometer, we simply mean 10 raised to minus 9 meter. Joining the principles of chemistry with nanoscience, a new branch has been developed called nanochemistry. Nanochemistry is the joining of two sciences, that is designing synthesis of material with nanoscale, and they will have different size, shape, structure and composition, and their organization in functional architecture. These three are your major definitions about nanoscience. We will now come across throughout the topic a definition called nanomaterial. Nanomaterial is that which will have at least one dimension in nanoscale. By dimensions, we mean x, y, and z axis. And by nanometer scale, it will mean between 1 to 100 nanometer. Nanomaterials are larger than single atoms, but they are smaller than bacteria or plant or animal cells. To give you a clear picture about nanoscale, let us take some examples. Size of a glucose molecule is about 1 nanometer. There is a very famous nanomaterial called carbon nanotube. It has dimension of 2 nanometer. A simple DNA molecule has a diameter of about 2 to 12 nanometer, and an extreme one we are considering is antibody, which is around 10 nanometer. To understand this in a form of a diagram, this is the scale we can imagine. Between 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer, whatever we come across is all nanoparticles. So nanomaterial have to be within the range of 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer range. There are some examples written here known as quantum dot, nanoshells, fullerene, etc., which we'll be studying in the topic. We now classify these nanomaterials on form of their scales. So nanomaterials like nanoparticles, nanowires, nanotubes, they are classified like with respect to their dimensions. Commonly occurring nanostructural materials are usually organic molecules, inorganic cluster compounds, metallic and even semiconductor material. There are three types which we study. Number one is called zero dimensional nanostructure. These are the material in which all the three dimensions are in nanoscale. Example, nanoparticles. One dimensional nanostructures in which two dimensions out of three are in nanoscale. Examples, nanowires and nanorods. And two-dimensional nanostructures in which one of the three dimension will be in nanoscale like thin films. Maybe looking at the definition, you are not convinced. Let me explain it with a diagram. Whenever we consider every substance, it has three dimensions called x-axis, that is x dimension, y dimension, and z dimension. When we say that it is zero dimension, it means all the three dimensions are in nanoscale. So its x-axis is nanoscale, y-axis dimension is in nanoscale, z-axis is in nanoscale. For example, if you are considering something like a cube, its length, breadth, and height all will be in nanoscale. That substance will be called zero dimension. In one dimension, two of the three will be in nanoscale. For example, x dimension is in nano, y dimension is in nano, but z dimension is larger than nano. So only over here you can imagine length and height is in nanoscale, depth may not be. When we say two dimension, one of the three dimension is in nanoscale. Like x is in nano, but y and z are not. If you have understood a simple trick of remembering this, that when we say zero dimension, that means all three are in nanoscale. So these numbers 0, 1 and 2 are with respect to those which are not in nanoscale. So zero dimension mean none of them are in non-nanoscale. One dimension means only one dimension is in non-nanoscale, and two dimension means two are not in non-nanoscale. So whatever is in nanoscale is not counted in the title. So 0, 1 and 2. Just to give you an idea more detail, if somebody says three dimension, that means x, y, z, none of them will be in nanoscale. None of them will be in nanoscale. We will now take examples of this. First, when we consider zero dimensions, examples are quantum dots. Now, as per your syllabus textbook, they have only given titles, nothing more than that. But just for the curiosity purpose, I have given little bit of extra information about them. Of course, in examination, they may not be required. Quantum dots are those nanoscale crystals which can transport electrons, and even they can filter the light. For example, here in the diagram you can see quantum dots of different nanometer scale filtering different light radiation. So the emitted light shows different radiation than the original inserted light. What you are going to remember is 0D nanostructure has example quantum dots. Next example is nanoshells. This is one of the most recent technology used, wherein you have a spherical nanoparticle. The inside core will be dielectric material covered with a metallic shell like gold. These nanoshells can absorb near infrared light and generate intense heat. Recent studies have shown that they can kill cancer cells. So these nanoshells have a great application in treatment of cancer. Number 3 is nano rings, and number 4 is microcapsules. For 1D nanostructures, you have nanotubes, which are hollow tube-like structure. Now this is a tube of carbon I have shown over here. Then you have nanowires and you have nanofibers. All the information which you see here is purely just for curiosity, not required for exams. In 2D nanostructures, we have thin films, thin layers, and thin coatings on materials. For exams, I am repeating again, only names are needed. Now let us go for different characteristic features of nanoparticles. The first is optical property, that's color. Now, whatever color we know for a bulk material will be totally different at nanoscale level. For example, we know color of gold very well. It's golden yellow, shining golden yellow. But around 100 atoms of gold are collected at nanoscale level. Unbelievably, they show red color. That also, as particle size changes, the shade will change. Like 20 nanometer, you can see the color, and greater than 100 nanometer, you can still see the color. And you can see it's unbelievable that it is gold which is made into nanoparticle part, and it doesn't look like gold at all. Second property is surface area, which you study a similar property even in the catalyst chapter. First important principle is high surface to volume ratio is a very important property of nanoparticles. You know, when a bulk is divided into group of small nanoparticles, total volume remains same, but overall exposed surface area will increase. With this diagram, you can understand it. That a larger particle is divided. You can see the hidden surfaces are exposed. We have higher surface to volume ratio. With large surface area and the same volume, reaction becomes faster. That is why such material can be used as catalyst and for some other purpose of reactions. We will explain this in a mathematical way. For example, you consider one cube which has 6 faces, and let us assume each side of the face is 4 centimeter. So the total surface area is 96 centimeter square. Suppose one cube is divided in 4 cubes. So the number of faces created will be 24, and one cube is divided in 20 cubes. Number of surfaces are 120. You can imagine if such a thing is done, the total exposed surface area increases so much, almost 10 times. So if cube is broken down into powder form, number of surfaces will increase, surface area will increase, that will increase the reactivity. Same property you can see is immediately employed in catalysis, and it's a related property. Due to increased surface area, decrease in particle size, nanomaterial based catalysts have now become very popular. Most of them are heterogeneous catalyst. That means catalyst is in different state than the reactants. They can be easily even separated since they are in solid state. Separation becomes very simple, and even if they lose activity upon usage, they can be recycled back. Few known examples are platinum and palladium nanoparticles for hydrogenation of organic materials. Titanium oxide and zinc oxide are used as photocatalyst. Gold nanoparticles are even better catalyst than metallic bulk gold. The next property we have is thermal property. You know, melting point also changes drastically with particle size. In this table, you can clearly see if you have 1000 atom sodium cluster, melting point is lowest. When they are 10,000 atom sodium cluster, it has become around 303 Kelvin. It has increased. Original bulk sodium has 371 Kelvin. So we can clearly imagine a picture here that smaller and smaller number of atoms in nanoparticle, melting point reduces, decreases. Then two small properties we learn here called mechanical strength. Nano-sized copper and palladium have been studied with diameter about 5 to 7 nanometer, and hardness has increased 500% than the original copper and palladium. So the funny thing is, if they have gone to the nano size, hardness is found to increase more. Also, electrical conductivity changes. For example, carbon nanotubes has been acting as conductor or semiconductor. In fact, there is a very famous which you saw in the beginning of the diagram called fullerene. Now, fullerene is found to become a superconductor at certain temperature. So, electrical conductivity. drastically can change. After the characteristics, we now go for how these nanoparticles or nanomaterials are generated. At 12th standard level, we are only going to study in a very rough, superficial way. Details, of course, are at not your level. There are three ways in which synthesis can be done. First is called bottom up approach. Now, in this diagram, you can watch from bottom to top. Molecular components arrange themselves in more complex assemblies, atom by atom, molecule by molecule, cluster by cluster from the bottom. So in the diagram you can see that bottom up approach mein you have these atoms, joining them we get clusters, and by joining clusters we get nanoparticles. These synthesis can be done from colloidal solutions. Now in the second approach, what you call as top down approach, we start with a bulk, break down into a coarse powder, which later on converts into nanoparticles. So in both these cases, different ways have been applied. Both of these are physical ways. The third way is to have wet chemical or sol gel process. If you remember the topic of surface chemistry, in which sol and gel is mentioned. Colloidal particles have dimension of around 1 to 100 nanometer, and sols are those substances where solid is dispersed phase, liquid is dispersion medium. Gel is interconnected rigid network of small pores in them, and they contain polymer chain. When we talk about sol gel process, there are four steps. First, hydrolysis, second, polycondensation, third, drying, and then thermally decomposing the substance. Details are not much given, but let us just superficially understand this. You can see in the diagram how the things are happening. In sol gel process, one of the first reaction is we take here a metal alkoxide MOR, which is treated with water to produce a metal hydroxide and corresponding alcohol. This is hydrolysis process. This metal hydroxide combines with second molecule of metal alkoxide to form ether-like structure. This process is called condensation. So doing these processes, whatever we are generating, they are the sol and gel. Now finally, the steps which we see are translated here. This is basically nothing but the description of the diagram which you see. So first we have the formation of different stable alkoxide. Second, converting him into a gel which is called gelation. Number three, aging of a gel, that means keeping them for a longer period so they convert into a solid mass. Finally, drying the gel and the volatile liquids are removed. Of course, the remaining is quite technical process, so which is not explained at your level. We go for another aspect of nanomaterial, that is analysis of nanomaterials. The most common tools which they use for this purpose are, the technique which they use is called ultraviolet visible spectroscopy. The instrument which they use is called UV visible spectrophotometer. Now by this instrument or by this technique, what information we generate? We get very preliminary confirmation of formation of nanoparticles. With X-ray diffraction method, which is done by X-ray diffractometer, we come to know about particle size, crystal structure and geometry of nanoparticles. With scanning electron microscopy, which is done through SEM, we come to know about the structure of surface of material, which in technology terms called morphology. Another technique used is called transmission electron microscopy, which is done through a transmission electron microscope. And this instrument tells us about particle size. Another very advanced technique is Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, which is popularly called FTIR spectrophotometer. And this tells us about absorption of functional groups, binding nature of nanoparticles used in different reactions. Just for the curiosity, we will just see the photographs of these machines, how they look like. Of course, this they will not ask in exams. First instrument is UV visible spectrophotometer with its working principle, X-ray diffractometer with its working principle. It works on diffraction principle. Scanning electron microscope with a working principle. Transmission electron microscope, which is a bit modification of the earlier machine. And Fourier transform infrared spectrophotometer with its working principle. Now most of the people feel when we learn this topic that this is all quite new science. It's absolutely a misconception. Nanomaterials have been unknowingly prepared by human race for thousands of years. And we get this proof in old Egyptian and Greek civilizations. Only thing is, those generations were not aware that they were preparing nanomaterials. Only now, since analysis techniques have become better, we come to know that okay, those old things were nanomaterials. We have a proof of them. The first old age example, which everyone knows, is ruby red color on ancient glass paintings like these. This reddish color, what you get, is not red color or red paint, but it is gold and silver nanoparticles, which in those days making were trapped in the glass matrix. Most of the techniques today have been lost in time, that how those people must have done this kind of paintings. Whatever technology we know today, it's quite different than the ancient technology. Decorative glaze or metallic films on medieval pottery is another example of metallic nanoparticles. The photographs which I'm showing are the real photographs of those metallic nanoparticles. This particular jar is a wine jar which was discovered in France in some excavation, and this green color what you see is because of the nanoparticles only. Another one is carbon black. Now these are quite modern inventions, of course, they are not ancient ones. Carbon black is that nanostructural material which is embedded in tires, and these tires have graphite sheets with nano size, and they have very high strength. Current recent application is fumed silica component, which is present in silicon rubber, silicon coating, different kind of sealing material and adhesive, and that is also a nanostructural material. Let us come to now applications of these nanomaterials. I have given in red color the principle and in blue color the application. Nanoparticles can contribute to stronger, lighter and cleaner and smart surfaces and systems. So they have been now used in manufacture of scratch proof eyeglasses, transport material, sunscreen, crack resistant paints, etc. Nanoparticles also have been used like magnetoresistive RAM in computers. Magnetoresistive, that means that RAM which will not get affected if it comes in magnetic field. Usually, random access memory gets erased when magnetic field is brought near it. They have developed now nanomaterial which are resistant to magnetism. Quite recent application which comes in our daily life is in water purification. They have made now silver nanoparticles which are present in our modern water purifiers, and these nano silver can kill lot of types of bacteria and quite different bacterial disinfectants. They are usually called in the technical terms as AGNP, that is silver nanoparticle. Most of the Indian water purifiers have been using this, and with the help of Chennai IIT, Madras IIT, they have been making this kind of nanoparticles on large scale. So it's a totally Indian material which we have been using in our daily life. Self-cleaning materials. Now this is one of the brilliant effect we can see. Lotus was the inspiration behind this thing. Now, as you know, lotus grows in muddy water, but its leaves are always very clean because the plant leaves are hydrophobic. So taking this kind of inspiration principle, they made self-cleaning windows. So self-cleaning windows have nano titanium oxide coating on which if dirt or water also comes, they get cleansed themselves. This is called lotus effect and it is known as self-cleaning windows. This was a quick overview of all your nanotechnology at your level. At last, we take advantages and disadvantages of this field. Advantages, of course, are many. Revolution has taken place in electronics and computing field. We can make now solar power more economical, energy storage devices more efficient, smart drugs to cure cancer and so many other diseases are possible due to this technology. Of course, every technology has disadvantages also. One of the disadvantages is it has elevated the standard of living but created a lot of pollution. This pollution is of two types, air pollution and nano pollution. Nanoparticles are so tiny as obviously that they can get deposited in our lungs. They can create problems for respiratory tract and cause damage to the lungs. They have started now becoming a health hazard and the health hazard differs depending on their size, chemical composition and shape. This was a small overview of a very great technology of nanochemistry. Those who will go for mechanical engineering and electronics engineering after 12th standard will learn much more about it as a great subject.